Donald Trump changes his mind on the Jeffrey Epstein files and now says release them all. Why did he change his mind, and what does it mean for the votes to come in Congress? Plus, cracks start to show in the Republican Party's MAGA coalition as Trump feuds with Georgia Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene and comes down on the side of Tucker Carlson, the podcast host, and interviewing Nazi fanboy Nick Fuentes.
From the opinion pages of the Wall Street Journal, this is Potomac Watch.
Welcome, I'm Paul Gigot with the Wall Street Journal, and this is Potomac Watch, our daily podcast, and I'm here with Kim Strassel and Kyle Peterson. So let's first take up the president's Epstein files reversal after months of saying that the files should not be released, and in fact, arm twisting Republicans in the House not to vote for a discharge petition that would allow a vote in the House on releasing the files. Trump over the weekend changed his mind and says he's got nothing to hide and let it all hang out. He's happy to see that happen. And by the way, he says Democrats will bear the brunt of these disclosures. So, Kim, my own judgment here about why he changed his mind is that the president saw that he was going to lose that discharge petition vote in the House. And even if he was going to win in the Senate, that wasn't going to look good. And this would continue to roil politics for days, if not weeks. And he just decided, all right, let's just make a virtue out of political necessity.
Oh, I completely agree. And this is very much Donald Trump. He does not like to be on the wrong side of a fight, like the losing side of a fight. And you can just see that in all his years of endorsements. He'll, hang out and wait until he's certain someone's going to win. Then he'll endorse him. Or if it looks as though they're not going to win, he'll withdraw his endorsement because he just doesn't like to be backing a loser, right? And he doesn't like to have this friction in between him, certainly not to look to be as though he's on the wrong side of a party issue that his party has chosen to go a different direction. And he'd tried everything else up until this point. The GOP had tried very hard to short circuit this in other ways. They set up this House committee oversight probe saying, look, we're already doing an investigation on this. We don't need to release all the files. That didn't really stop this handful of Republicans who wanted to sign the discharge petition. Really, there were 4 of them in the beginning. Donald Trump did try to arm twist them individually. That didn't work. He tried to put pressure on the caucus as a whole, but it now looks this vote is likely to happen Tuesday afternoon. And now that the dam is broken, there will probably be dozens of Republicans who vote to release it in the end because they feel as though their base wants them to. And so in this regard, they're willing to thwart the president. So now he's going to be on their side. I think it's probably smart, Paul. Politically, you potentially tamp this down. And you put this behind you. And you also, if Donald Trump is correct, and from everything we've seen up until now, he's not been proven wrong, that there isn't anything damning in any of this evidence against him. He has insisted he never did anything inappropriate. There could be some embarrassing things in there, but I guess he's probably placing his thoughts on the fact that Jeffrey Epstein traveled far and wide, and there'll be plenty of things in there that are embarrassing to Democrats as well, too. So let's just throw it all out there.
Well, this means that in that House vote, Kyle, I guess estimates are now where it had only been a handful of Republicans who would vote for Democrats for this discharge petition. It's going to be a stampede. And all the Republicans will want to get on the so-called populist side of this. So they'll pass the House with big margins. And then it goes to the Senate, presumably, and hard to see Republicans standing up here to stop this. So it becomes law and then goes to the president's desk. But that doesn't mean that all these documents are going to be released, right? Because some of this is grand jury testimony, which a judge presumably will have a say on. Particularly if it's mere assertion and guilt by association with people. That's why we keep raw grand jury testimony secret. And then you're already hearing, inevitably, I guess, the Justice Department just going to essentially scrub all the names of Republicans and Donald Trump references from these documents and just make sure that it's just Democrats who get out. And I mean, there's no way of knowing. You can't prove whether that happened or not. If you're in the Justice Department, it's of course be stupid to do that. But and I don't think they necessarily will. But in this environment where theories are rampant, you can almost never disprove something that like this. You always have the next conspiracy.
Right. The other thing you're hearing a little bit too is now that the Southern District of New York U.S. Attorney's Office is supposed to be investigating some of this, that maybe there will be some privileges invoked to keep some of this information inside that investigation and not publicly disclosed. But that's the problem of fanning these kinds of populist fires in the media, as some of the members of the administration, including Kash Patel, before he was FBI director, back when he was going on these podcasts talking about just tell us who the child predators are. The Biden administration is covering it up. Then they're now in power, and people they've been sold a bill of goods that there's this grand conspiracy, and people expect the current administration to get to the bottom of it. I generally agree with Kim's assessment that the Trump position here is just basically based on the politics. He was standing in the middle of the road trying to stop this parade from coming and decided that it was more politically advantageous to turn around and pretend he's actually leading it. But the problem is, who knows what is in all these files? Who knows how credible any of the information is? But the worry is that there's going to be a lot of damage potentially done to people, including victims maybe of Epstein, who might be identifiable even if their names are not in the documents that are publicly released. Accusations against people that are unverified or unverifiable, hearsay stuff like, I was on this Epstein plane and I think I saw this guy, but I'm not really entirely sure. It could have been him. It couldn't have been him. But just the mere fact that name is in there is hugely prejudicial. And so that is why the classic MO of the Justice Department is to do the investigation internally, keep all that stuff private, and then bring charges or not.
Yeah, and it could be one of the real unfortunate outcomes here is guilt by association, drive-by accusations that damage reputations when it's not deserved. But we shall see on this. Question is, will it have any big impact long-term on the Trump presidency? My own suspicion is not. Now, obviously, that is contingent on what we learn from the documents, but I suspect not. All right, let's turn to the fissures in the MAGA movement. All political movements have their disagreements. Political parties are designed to be large enough tents to contain those disagreements. But there are some notable signs now that MAGA is beginning to fracture somewhat. And Trump is facing opposition from some of his MAGA supporters on legal immigration, for example, on foreign policy, and of course on releasing the Epstein files. In particular, he's broken with Marjorie Taylor Greene, the Georgia Republican, who used to be his fast friend. Trump denounced her as disloyal on the weekend, withdrew his election endorsement. Let's listen to Congresswoman Greene talk about her disagreements with Trump on CNN.
I can say that promoting H-1B visas to replace American jobs, bringing in 600,000 Chinese students to replace American students' opportunities in American colleges and universities, those are not America First positions. And continuing to really travel all over the world doesn't help Americans back at home. I really, and I said this to him, and I will say it out loud, I would love to see Air Force One be parked and stay home, and there be nothing but a constant focus in the White House on a domestic agenda that helps the American people once and for all.
Well, Kim, I almost hate to put her on a clip, since she is so out there on so many issues. I mean, the idea that the president just park that Air Force One baby at home and stay there. Maybe you can stay here for 4 years, see how that works out with American interests around the world. But what do you make of this, the split between Greene and Trump?
So my theory on what's actually happened since Trump lost the White House in 2020 over the last 5 years is that you began to see a lot of younger other politicians on the right decide that they were going to model themselves after him, not just in terms of his kind of fight and aggressiveness, but that they were going to decide that they were going to triple down, for lack of a better word, on this populist agenda. You know, you put it in quote marks. I'm always careful with that word, but they weren't going to just triple down on trade and triple down on the border, but also go far beyond what Trump ever did in his first term to adopt deeply isolationist views, to become very anti-corporation, to buddy up with big labor, to embrace national industrial policy, all of this in a quest for what they think the working man might want, which is now, you know, the new quest for the Republican Party is to win the working man vote. And that's become the rise of this new right or nationalist conservative movement. And Marjorie Taylor Greene is a poster girl for that movement. So she's constantly berating Trump for spending too much time overseas. She's her most recent conspiracy theory is that Israel is the one pressuring Trump to cover up the Epstein files. Domestically, she's been leading the charge for the GOP to extend or actually increase those Obamacare subsidies that they actually shut down the government. I mean, that the Democrats shut down the government over. So she's very much on the Democratic side of that. She's criticized domestic executive orders from the administration on issues like environmental concerns, et cetera. And so she's sort of become much more of almost kind of Bernie Sanders left. And as you note, this crack was always going to come, at least if Donald Trump wanted to try to stand up for his own beliefs. He's allowed himself to be pushed that direction from people who are in his administration, including his vice president, on some of these issues. But there seems to be a wall at which he does not want to go past, and he's beginning to push back on some of this. And he lost it with her this weekend, said he was unendorsing her, and called her out. It's a very interesting term, but one I think that was almost inevitable when you start to tell the guy who actually began MAGA, you're not MAGA enough, and you don't know what it means to be America first. You are courting the likelihood that he's going to, at some point, really take exception to that.
Yeah, this is melodrama politically, Kyle, but I point to the legal immigration division on the MAGA right. I mean, Trump has made his political mark, of course, opposing illegal immigration, but he's always been somewhat supportive about legal immigration because he understands that we need foreign workers in this country because there really is a shortage of workers for employers. Every survey of employers shows that. Trump himself must know this because he hires foreign workers for his hotels and golf courses. So he's sympathetic to some kind of legal immigration. But that is running up against the opposition from some of his MAGA base who want no legal immigration at all. They want zero, or they want much less, as J.D. Vance even has said publicly, because we need, in Vance's words, to have a much more unified culture. We need a society that doesn't have so many divisions, and he thinks immigration fuels that. But that's also a break in the MAGA coalition between the employer wing, not just big business, but also small business, and the restrictionist wing on immigration. And that is going to be a longer term policy disagreement that runs right through 2028, I'm sure.
Right. And one thing that I think is going on here as well is the difference between being an outsider throwing critiques of the administration and being the person who is actually trying to make some kind of sensible policy. You know, it is easy to be a bomb thrower, backbencher in the House saying, I have the solution for all of you blue collar workers in the Rust Belt who are unhappy. It's basically, we're just going to take immigration to zero, and then all of your problems will be solved. And then it's harder to get elected and to get into the office and get into the rooms with some of these CEOs of these companies that you're trying to get to build, for example, chip fabrication plants in the United States and Arizona. And they're saying, we don't have the talent, we don't have the workers to make this happen. By the way, I would throw in also Trump's deals that he's making with foreign countries like Japan for direct investment in the United States. The South Korean battery plant in Georgia, where there were workers from South Korea who were trying to help set up this LG, I think it was, battery plant, and that got hit by an ICE raid. So I think that is what is focusing Trump's mind, is this question of talent. And I think he has a pretty good point. Of the 9 hard science Nobel laureates this year, 6 of them are affiliated with U.S. institutions. Half of those 6 were not born in the United States. Where you look at Jensen Huang, the founder and the CEO of NVIDIA, who came to the United States at the age of 9. I think Trump has a pretty good argument that one of America's strengths is the ability to draw talent, high-tech talent in particular, since we're talking about these chips and IT, and the ability to have those companies be started here. I think America is stronger that we have NVIDIA and that company wasn't started somewhere else.
All right. That debate will continue. So let's turn here, final subject today, to another fissure emerging on the right, and that is the debate over Tucker Carlson and the podcast host and his softball interview with Nick Fuentes, the Nazi sympathizer. Donald Trump himself stayed quite silent about this over the course of a week, but then said on the weekend the following. Let's listen.
We've had some great interviews with Tucker Carlson, but you can't tell him who to interview. I mean, if he wants to interview Nick Fuentes, I don't know much about him, but if he wants to do it, get the word out. Let him, people have to decide. Ultimately, people have to decide.
You yourself had dinner with Nick Fuentes at Mar-a-Lago a few years ago. What role should he play in the conservative movement?
Well, I didn't know he was coming, and he was with, as you know, somebody, Kanye. And Kanye asked if he could have dinner, and he brought Nick. I didn't know Nick at the time. And he did. He came, and along with a few other people. He brought a few people with him. Meeting people, talking to people, like for somebody like Tucker, that's what they do. People are controversial. Some are, some aren't.
Well, Kim, was Trump siding here with Tucker in interviewing Fuentes, as Steve Bannon and some others think?
I think he's not really taking a position, Paul. I think he's dancing around this, which I think is unfortunate. There's been a lot of voices in the GOP that have come out and condemned this and pointed out that, look, even if you're a rabid defender of free speech and you might defend Tucker Carlson's decision to put this guy on and give him a platform, that you at least had an obligation to push back and to be critical of his views. And Tucker didn't do that at all. And so it was a pretty disgraceful episode all around. I wish that Donald Trump had said this. I think here's a little bit difference when you come to the fissure. This is the big difference I see out there is Tucker Carlson has always been very, very, very clever. And when he does these interviews, he'll put people on that very much espouse this America First view, often have conspiracy theories, wildly divergent, incorrect views of history, and he lets them speak. But he's pretty careful himself not to criticize the president. And that is what the president cares about, right? I mean, this is one reason he's going after Marjorie Taylor Greene, that she has dared to name him and call him out and criticize him. This is the president seeming to want to not break that relationship with Tucker, who is influential among a certain group of people. Again, I kind of wish he'd have taken the side that more of the conservative party is taken, which is that we cannot afford to be playing footsie with this kind of really unpleasant crew of people, because there is anti-Semitism on the rise, and we do need some moral clarity on this issue.
Well, yeah, the Carlson method is have somebody on, no matter what their views, like a historian who says that Winston Churchill was at fault in starting World War II, for example. And then his thing says, hey, look, I'm just asking questions, man. Okay. Well, then ask questions of Fuentes if you have him on that are more than kind of a, well, I think you ought to get your message out more. This sort of thing. It was a disgraceful interview. And look, there are some views. I mean, Fuentes and Carlson can do what they want. Nobody is censoring them in the least. The question is whether or not the Republican Party and the conservative movement, conservative intellectuals, or if real or imagined, are going to say, "Hey, that's fine, no worries. Let's have a representative of the brown shirts on. See what they have to say. Maybe they have something good to say. Hey, let's have somebody from the Red Guards on. They're a serious movement. These kids maybe they have something to say. There are some ideas that are simply not. You shouldn't mainstream, particularly if you want to be a political movement that can gather a majority and say you represent the American people. And these and Fuentes and increasingly Tucker traffic in anti-Semitic tropes in particular. And that's dangerous. So I don't think the president is, at all ill-spirited in any of this. I don't think he's an anti-Semite. I don't think he has, frankly, a racist bone in his body. No. But the guy grew up in Queens, and he's been dealing with all people of varying races and creeds and ethnicities his entire life. I think the problem, though, is that, as you say, Kim, he doesn't want to get on their bad side. He doesn't want to alienate them. And that now, when you're talking about these kinds of poisonous views, is dangerous, Kyle.
Yeah, I mean, it would be nice to see the president take a harder line, though it is good to see that there are others on the Republican side of the aisle who are doing that. Ted Cruz notably standing up and saying that this stuff has no place on the right in the Republican Party. I mean, another part of the dynamic here that's going on, not only on this, but these other splits in the MAGA movement and the GOP, part of that also, I think, is related to the fact that we have or will soon have a lame duck president. And there is some jockeying, I think, to figure out what the MAGA movement is supposed to become after Donald Trump hits his 2-term limit and leaves the political scene, or at least elected office, because he may not leave the political scene. He's probably not going to put down his Truth Social account. But I do think that there is, I think that's part of this dynamic too. I mean, I think Ted Cruz is right about what he says, and he believes it. But I also think he's setting himself up to make the argument that, look, it's 2028, and we need to lead the Republican Party back toward a party that can get the mainstream of America. And some of these competing figures, maybe in the 2028 primary, are too far toward the fringes.
Well, we shall see where this goes. I think one other thing that is happening here is that this is all about 2028. And you brought up Ted Cruz, who's, I think, sees an opening here to run against J.D. Vance, who is very close to Tucker Carlson, and has been notably silent so far about the controversy over Carlson's interview with Fuentes and others. And I think he is going to be reluctant to criticize Carlson at all. And we'll see where this debate goes as the race for 2028 unfolds. And this is only the early maneuvering, but I think you can see the outlines of how some of this is going to go. All right. Thank you, Kim. Thank you, Kyle. Thank you all for listening. We are here every day on Potomac Watch.